There are growing concerns about a sprawling and sophisticated Chinese hacking operation. U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee Chair Mark Warner going so far as to call it the worst telecom hack in the nation's history. People briefed on the matter tell CNN that Chinese hackers have been hacking, tracking phone calls, reading text messages, and even listening to the conversations for some of the most senior figures in both the Democratic and Republican parties. Even Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were targeted. What remains unclear is exactly what intelligence was gathered during these hacks. An all-senators briefing on the situation is scheduled for December 4th. CNN cybersecurity reporter Sean Lingus is tracking the latest details live from Washington. Sean, what more are you learning about all this?
Well, Frederica, this has been a five-alarm fire since it started, since we learned about it several weeks ago. We've been chasing this story along with every other major outlet. But let's be honest, this is a feat of espionage that the U.S. government would be envious of. It's fair game, considered fair game to go after political targets, to listen to their calls. The National Security Agency here in the U.S. has done the same to other foreign leaders. However, the scope of this hack is really what is troubling U.S. officials. We're talking every major U.S. telecom provider that has been targeted, and they're going after, as you said, senior political figures. The incoming President-elect Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance. We've also reported that Senator Chuck Schumer's office has been targeted. So they really are turning over every stone in an effort to try to listen to what senior U.S. officials are saying about policy, what might be changing in the incoming administration. One source I spoke to the other day compared it to as if the U.S. Had installed Huawei, the Chinese telecommunication giant, in all of our networks. And of course, U.S. officials don't trust Huawei, so that's a point to say that everything is compromised right now. Still very much a fluid situation. We are going to get more names, I think, publicly as the weeks go by. But what we know now is that's actually a bipartisan issue, Frederica. The outgoing administration, the Biden administration, does not want to hand this over to the Trump administration in the form of a crisis. They're trying to tamp that down right now. We reported on a White House meeting on Friday with senior telecom execs that were briefed by National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, shared the latest intelligence with them. But the bottom line here, Frederica, is they actually don't know what they don't know necessarily. There's still intrusions, parts of the hack that they're trying to uncover, trying to figure out where the hackers are and to try to kick them out. Because it's very, very difficult to get them out of the systems right now. Yeah, all right. Very eyebrow raising. All right, Sean Lingus, thank you so much. Let's talk more about all this. Let's bring in CNN political and national security analyst David Sanger. He's a White House and national security correspondent for the New York Times. David, you wrote, contributed to the writing in this article for the New York Times. So this is very sophisticated, this Chinese hacking operation. So what do we believe the hackers were able to find out as they retrieved some of this information?
Well, Frederica, the thing that has most astounded American officials who've been watching this, I think, are basically two or three things. First, the Chinese hackers were in the American telecom system for probably a year before they were detected. And they were really only detected because Microsoft, which is not a telecom provider, noticed that some of the internet addresses that they were seeing on Chinese sites that were closely linked to this Ministry of State Security intelligence unit that was doing the hacking seemed to resolve back at Verizon and AT&T and other telecom makers. Then when they dug in deeper, it turned out that it looks like they had been on basically the receiving end of the system that these companies use to help the government with court-ordered wiretaps. Those include both criminal cases and cases of federal investigations into suspected spies come out of the FISA court, which is a secret court run to do intelligence investigations. That would mean that the Chinese hackers got the phone numbers of those the U.S. was following, and thus would know whether they were on to Chinese spies. So it's that kind of thing that is most disturbing.
So how far behind is the U.S. in bolstering its defenses against this kind of hack?
So the difficulty here is that the American telecommunication system wasn't put together at one time. It was sort of stitched together.